What's up, everybody? We are back with another live edition of the Ad Podcast, and we are hanging out with Mark Barker from Craft and Commerce. Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dylan.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your agency and what brought you to Possible.
Yeah, co-founder of Craft and Commerce. We're media buying, our specialty shop. We run the gamut from performance marketing, brand building, retail media. We live most comfortably kind of at the intersection of both of those things. We are lucky to represent some big brands like Chobani Yoga.
Nice, let's go.
Here we go.
Little plug.
World's largest appliance manufacturer, Midea, to a lot of like growing challenger brands. Challenger CPG is really a sweet spot, so Real Good Foods, Mush, Fly by Jang, a lot of those fast-growing brands there. TrueCar.com. So client set kind of runs the gamut. I'd say the through line there is something that makes us relatively unique.
Yeah.
My co-founder and I both did tours on the brand side.
Nice.
Our managing director was our first client, and our entire leadership team has held leadership posts at growing brands.
Okay, so you guys are brand side generally, not agency, lifer, media guys.
We've kind of collectively tried to build the agency that we wish we had.
Nice.
Brand
That's
side,
cool.
and I'd say the distinction there is we're really good at the planning, the buy, the optimization. But what was keeping us up at night, we were on that side, was justifying investment to the CFO.
Yep.
Having to come up with multiple media scenarios to hit a revenue target for the board, having to pivot in the middle of the night because of supply chain issues, whatever, right? So we've kind of built the people and the tools and the tech to really meet those strategic challenges head on, on top of just kind of core blocking testing. Maybe.
Got it. Got it. I think I read a headline that you guys had some news that you announced at Possible, joining like the MMA network, or
man, that's what brought us here. Like you, you've done a ton of the industry conferences, and Possible has this sheen of what's happening. Can North America, and just a lot of high speed, sexy stuff here. But as a bit of a data nerd, like what I love is the research that MMA Global is doing generally, but launching here. So last year they launched or shared out their brand and performance research with Ally Financial, Kroger, Campbell Soup, really substantiating the idea that investing in brand gives you a better long-term outcome. You have to have that patience. There's a crossover point where brand starts to exceed performance marketing alone in about a year, and how do you get that balance right? And so that's been foundational for us in having that conversation with a lot of clients. A lot of the MMA research helps us open the door to those conversations with the CFO. This year this afternoon actually, they're going into their movable middles growth framework, which is also really interesting. Encourage folks to look that up. And so it was the inspiration for us joining MMA Global. We're the first small agency to partner with them on that level. We are going to start plugging some of our growing brands into their tools and their research, because a lot of that exists with some of the biggest brands in the world. So how do we plug growing challenger brands into this, and what sort of results do we see from that? And so we're super interested in, we're super invested and excited in our MMA Global partnership, and this is where
I love that. Do you think the pendulum is swinging a little bit back to the idea that you have to have a brand that people love and a brand that people trust? I think measurement and performance marketing has maybe led a few cycles to the point where, when those channels start to tap up and no longer be effective, when algorithms and companies have messy breakups like, Apple and Facebook, and certain targeting frameworks or data policy updates with it, whether it's within the framework of, government regulation or just the need to give people more privacy, walled gardens. It seems like investing in brand. I've seen some recent headlines from Nike where maybe they went a little bit too hard into performance and forgot some of their roots recently. Do you have any take on that in general?
I do. I'm smiling because you just laid out my take. Literally point for point. But look, so many dynamics have
right.
shifted the performance marketing landscape from one where 10 years ago brands could turn on the performance engine and would grow to $1 billion.
Print money. Yep.
And I think a lot of folks are still colored by that experience, but on the ground, the conditions have changed significantly. And so many folks come to us actually when they're hitting that performance ceiling, and they're like, Chris, we just can't profitably grow through performance alone anymore. And I think, very much to your point, the industry is now really embracing the old muscles of a balanced funnel and investing in brand, and our job is really, how do we be that Sherpa? How do we figure out how to get that balance right? How do we really figure out how to measure all of this over a longer time horizon? But I think it's a super exciting time. I think things like current economic uncertainty,
tariff stuff,
really make brand more important, right? Because brand is price elasticity. It's all the reasons folks are going to buy you, other than click on an ad at the lowest point down funnel. And so we're huge champions of that. I think this conference is a great place to kind of learn to blend and evolving in that line as well. So
love it. So let's switch over to Possible. What brought you here was originally this partnership with MMA. What are you excited about as far as content? Any panels that you're really looking forward to that you're ready to see over the next couple of days?
There's a ton of great stuff. I'll speak kind of thematically.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
When I have talked out what I'm definitely going to hit, I think there's a few themes. One of which is, of course, AI.
Yeah,
we've talked a lot about that.
Wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't address AI, right?
And I see a few threads here that are kind of interesting. One, of course, is what I think we're all talking about. The vibe is shifting from all the possibilities to rubber meets the road. Like, how's this actually working? And so you see some panels here, I think, beyond the hype cycle, real world impact, right? And so I think that's a really interesting theme. I think on the AI side as well, and then we've got the juxtaposition of there's a few different panels on storytelling, authenticity, trust. And I think it's really interesting. As much as the pendulum is swinging to AI efficiency and effectiveness with production, with hoovering up and making sense of massive amounts of data, and so many great things you can do there, being more efficient from a task orientation standpoint, I think you're seeing an equal and opposite swing towards authenticity, storytelling, right? In an environment kind of flooded by inauthentic content. And so I think that evolution is kind of interesting. And then just the evolution of discovery and search and the world.
Yeah, I think that's really a huge topic, right? Because now, my whole life I went to Google first, and now I'd say maybe half the time I go to ChatGPT first.
Yeah.
And with ChatGPT, I'm not clicking on links. I'm just getting information, and then maybe I take that information and then go to Google. But I know a lot of brands are reporting, organic SEO being down, paid search being down. How do you think brands should think about optimizing for discovery in this world where we're using AI as our research assistant, maybe when we used to think of Google as the primary place to go?
I really think it goes back to our conversation around brand and performance.
Yep.
It's going to be really hard to exist solely in a world of blue links. But the question is, where does AI cultivate and curate those recommendations? And that I think is high quality content, which again gets towards the conversation of investing in brand,
Authorization. Yep.
And so, and gets into creator content and the larger universe around that. And so, really, I think that is the answer to creating sustainability in a really evolving environment. And I thought that was another interesting kind of theme that's showing up here that we're just seeing generally, is this flattening of the funnel. and the convergence of, creator, creative commerce. BCG recently released a report saying that they're creating what they call influence maps, which are really kind of, speak to the multimodal dynamic journey, buyer's journey these days. And I think it really does speak to, and AI is just another leg on that stool of like, how do we show up really in a really vibrant, consistent way across touch points, because it's not a linear process.
I love it. All right, Mark, thank you for coming on the show. Where should people go if they want to learn more or connect with you directly?
For sure, www.craftind, craftind.com. Find me on LinkedIn.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dylan.
Cheers.